Hi, I'm Dr. Zoe, host of Stronger in the Difficult Places. Today, we are talking about how curiosity, not certainty, makes relationships last. My guest is Stefani Ruper. She's an Oxford-trained philosopher and former Harvard researcher whose forthcoming book, The Certainty Cure, shows how trading certainty for curiosity transforms our lives. So I'm super excited to talk about this. I've been talking a lot about this idea of how the things we think we know, most of which they're just not true, actually sabotage us in our lives. So I'm excited to have this conversation with Stephanie. Get ready to talk about how all the things you think you know probably aren't true. Tune in. Stephanie, I am so excited to talk to you today. I don't talk to a lot of academics, although I do talk to a lot of writers, and so I just love to vibe with people in a slightly different space. So welcome.
Thank you. I was in academia for a very long time,
Yeah.
and I've studied at many universities. I left on purpose because, I always thought that that's where I needed to be to live the life of the mind, and
Yes.
then realized that that wasn't true at all. So yeah, so I like to think that I sit at that intersection.
Do.
I try to honor all the worlds.
Today. So I want to know because you've had such a rich academic and personal journey from Oxford trained philosopher to author of The Certainty Cure, which is coming out, and we're going to talk about that. What drew you to study certainty? And what made you realize that our attachment to certainty is actually or could actually be a problem?
There's a lot there, but
Yeah.
I
Big
think
question.
I think the foundational moment for me was actually in high school.
Mm.
I remember riding in the back seat of my mom's SUV and having my world explode when I realized that there were 8 billion, then 7, now 8 billion people on this planet, and the full 8 billion think they're right about everything.
I say that so much. I wrote that about that in my book, Stronger in the Difficult Places, is that idea. And this is how it affects relationships. We all think that the way we think is the right way, all 8 billion of us, and we can't all possibly be right, which
Yeah,
means,
and I gotta say, like, for me, the real beauty of relationship,
yeah,
deep, intimate relationship, romantic relationship, friendship, is how it forces me to get outside of myself. Because if I want a healthy relationship, that means for me doing everything I can to understand that they have their thing
right.
and to give them benefit of the doubt, right?
Hmm.
Give them benefit of the doubt because and that personal relationship thing we're talking about, understanding them, for me, in the certainty cure and my work in general, applies to all people, right? Rare exceptions aside,
Hmm.
everybody out here doing their best.
Yes, right.
Everybody out here doing their best.
Hmm.
And, and so when there's conflict, when there's friction, I mean, people can have malicious intent, and it's important to boundary against that.
Hmm.
But aside from that, conflict, friction, these are just points where we have opportunities to get curious about what's going on for you and what's going on for me. This is a sign that something important is happening to me, so I can get curious about that and then I can learn. And then hopefully we can move together more healthfully ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that word curious. And curiosity is so hard to have when you are offended, right? When you're sitting in this place of offense, we do not go to curiosity, we go to defense. And yet, I do want to invite the woman listening to start to explore what that would look like. And curiosity doesn't mean we are rationalizing behavior, doesn't mean we're accepting bad behavior, but it does mean that if we can understand that our partner thinks differently, has had a different life experience, if we look at him or her from the moment they were born with the temperament they were given all the way up until this moment, all the things that they have done, all the ways that they see the world make complete sense, even if they are completely opposite of our own, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's it's literally Like it's some of the hardest stuff we can do because it is literally impossible to get outside
Yes.
our own experiences.
Mm, yes.
And so, there's a lot of really interesting ways to talk around that. Like some people say you should try to have fellow feeling and let your feelings connect with their feelings and try to understand what they're going through. But there's also this cognitive level, like you were talking about, trying to look at all of the different
Hmm.
experiences they've gone through and make sense of it intellectually. Um, and I think that that's when harmonizing those things is really important, right? Like understanding that we can use our minds and we can use our feelings. Like they're not separate things. When we're trying to be curious about other people, we want to use our hearts and our minds, I suppose.
Yeah, I love that. I want to talk about the certainty cure, but first I want to talk about what we're kind of talking around here is that I love what you said when you said we cannot get out of our experience. And so I'm thinking of a woman who may have some codependency, who may be struggling in a difficult relationship and trying to figure out how do I know the line between boundary and curiosity? Like, when should I be applying boundary and when should I be applying curiosity? Or maybe it's not a either or, but can you talk a little bit about that?
So when you're talking about codependency, you mean
Yes.
boundary like against, it's something I like to think about is that we think about boundaries as often as like a barrier against an external thing. But to
Hmm.
me, the real boundaries, the difficult ones to honor, are the ones we have to draw on ourselves.
Amen. I think that that is all that boundaries are rules that we create for ourselves. It is not a rule we create for someone else.
Yeah, and I think I mean these things can shift, right? But
Hmm.
it's a matter of I always orient towards health.
Right.
What do I think is healthy for me? I had some real issues being a radical overgiver and having some codependency in terms of relationships where we're like out competing each other for who can give the most kind of
Hmm.
stuff, you know? And I had a partner 10 years ago, just he was like, stop, just stop, you need to, and it didn't make sense to me for a very long time that I was creating anxiety for myself
Mm.
by trying to anticipate this person's needs and thinking that I needed to do all of these certain things. And so
Right.
the boundaries that I ended up having to create was to say within myself, like I will not check my messages after 10 p.m.
Mm. Hmm.
And some of the boundaries are very vague. Like I don't want to overextend myself for people. But for me, it's often been very helpful to be really concrete. I will not check my messages after 10 p.m., right?
I like that.
Or
Yeah.
I will not respond to somebody motivated by fear.
Mm.
I think a lot of what I did in my life was re interact with people out of a fear that I was going to lose them,
Yep.
right? Oh, I have to, or I'm going to hurt them, I'm going to offend them, I'm going to offend God or something. Like I'm going to
Mhm.
hurt somebody if I don't just give everything I have all the time.
Mhm.
And I had a boundary against myself, and finding practical ways to do that really helped me mold that. And one thing that really helped me do that was telling myself, we have to be the change that we want to see in the world.
Right.
And if I want other people to have healthy boundaries, I got to be that example. I got to be that change.
Hmm.
And so it's a really funny kind of workaround because it was for other people.
Yes.
It was for
Right.
other people, but it helped me get into that habit of setting that, and I really do believe that orienting towards healthiness, what is healthy for me, what is a healthy relationship, is ideal. And then if stuff comes our way that isn't healthy, we can identify it immediately and be like, sorry, no, I don't do
Hmm.
this. If
Hmm.
both of us, because a poor healthy, like a relationship that's in poor health is bad for both people.
Yes, absolutely. Right. If one part of the relationship is unhealthy, both parts are. So I think about it as I will not abandon myself.
Mm.
Right? What does self-abandonment look like? And often when we are experiencing these codependent relationships, we're trying to control other people's behavior and we are abandoning ourselves in the process to try to make them happy so that when we feel happy, so that we feel good. So okay, that was good. That was good talking about the difference kind of between boundaries and what was the question I asked? Boundaries
Curiosity,
and
right? Like,
curiosity.
you
Yeah.
know, I will say you mentioned what did you just say? Self-abandonment. I think it has been so hard for me to, in my past,
Hmm.
not abandon myself because I
Hmm.
was so lonely.
Mm.
And out of my loneliness, like I didn't want to be abandoned
Right. Yeah.
by anybody.
Hmm.
But I was willing to abandon myself if it was
Right.
going to win me the companionship of somebody else.
Yeah. Yes.
And, I think I think we're social beings, so I think it's really important. Like, you don't want to be alone in yourself, but I think also building really healthy friendship networks, family relationships, having a diverse pool of different kinds of relationships it was very important for me, helping me stop self-abandoning by just feeling held in community more of the
Hmm.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so good. So let's talk about the certainty cure. It's a very enticing title. Is there a cure?
Yes, I
Okay.
do. It's really funny because I've been working in the health space for, I don't know, 15 years now.
Hmm.
It's a side business to my doctoral studies.
Uh-huh.
And anyway, the language of cure is very tricky.
Hmm.
It's very tricky, it's very complicated. And in fact, in my book, I use the phrase certainty addiction, which is also,
Another one of those. Yeah.
also appropriation of hard language. But
Sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I actually believe certainty addiction is clearly not a classical addiction, and it doesn't have the same kind of power as substances, you
Hmm.
know.
Hmm.
But I talk about it as an addiction because I believe that our attachment to certainty is driven by the same thing,
Yep.
pain and fear. And um, I think that we cling to our beliefs.
Yeah.
We run towards certitude because it feels safe. Something that I actually don't talk about in the book that's coming out in November because it's like a little bit more advanced philosophically, and I was trying to just keep the book simple, is my thought that we cling to the beliefs that we've had so far because they've worked so far. And I mean worked, it doesn't mean they were good for us.
Correct.
I think a lot of the quote unquote unhealthy or negative beliefs and scripts that we adopt over time have a survival function. We adopt them because we think they're helping us stay safe. I mean, that's to me where things like codependency come from, right?
Mhm.
Somehow we learned this is a relationship pattern that's going to keep us safe. So anyway, I think all of our beliefs are like this. We sort of formed them at some point.
Right.
They worked, they kept us safe, they helped give us feelings of identity and belonging with the people who shared the groups. And then our world, I mean, today everybody's in a huge panic about how unsafe our world is today. Okay.
Mhm.
And so we 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 cling,
Right.
we entrench and narrow and with the under the illusion that this is going to keep us safe, but it's to me it's doing the opposite. Because
Yes.
what's actually going to help us be safe is remaining curious and open to exploring new ideas and engaging other people as if they mean well and seeing what
Mm-hmm.
happens, so
Hmm.
long as we're boundary against, harmful behavior.
Yeah.
Um, and that's really the crux of all of it. And, I have experience working in health and philosophy and spirituality and across all these different domains. It's just over and over and over again, consistently releasing our certainty, cultivating an attitude of curiosity unlocks growth, and ultimately can feel scary at first, but becomes the safest thing
Mm. Yeah.
because then you're sitting in a space of, well, it's okay if I'm wrong. It's okay if I don't have the answers today. I'm going to keep going and I'm just going to keep going. And eventually I'm going to put together the pieces. I'm going to figure it out. Um, so I don't know. I think it's a really chill way to be.
It is. It's a very free way to be, and I love that. It's okay if I'm wrong. It's okay if I don't have all the answers. And especially growing up in kind of a classic fundamental Christian home, there was, whether overtly or subtly, there was the message that you don't question. And that questioning in and of itself is a demonstration of a deficit, a lack of faith, all of these things. And I think what I learned, what I had to learn and didn't learn until adulthood, was it is in fact the questioning and seeking and curiosity and coming to my own understanding that strengthens my beliefs, right? Because my beliefs aren't tied to a fear, like I must believe this because instead it's I believe this because I've done my own searching and come to this stance. I think that that was really solid what you just said. And I don't want to get off into a tangent because I know we're talking about relationships. So if we talk, like using all of that information, all of that language, how do we apply this practically in relationships when we have disagreements, when I have a partner who has grown up so differently than I am and sees the world so differently? And when I want to get offended if he and I don't see the same on something.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, just like a quick example.
Yeah.
When I was 20,
Hmm.
I'm an INTJ if people are into personality
Hmm.
typing or whatever.
Hmm.
Very organized and like on time, relentlessly,
Yeah.
persistently. I'm not anymore because I realized other people aren't, and so I just
Right.
stopped. But like, I used to always be really on time, and I had this friend who was chronically late,
Yes.
and
I
I
would be
was,
that friend, just so you know.
yeah. And at first, I was like, she doesn't love me, she doesn't
Yep.
respect me, she doesn't
Yes.
care about me.
Yes. Yes. All the meaning. Right.
And then like, but it was actually learning about like personality types,
Yeah.
understanding different ways of being in the world that I thought, oh, she just has a different relationship with time. It's not me. It's time she's got an issue with. And and so I'm not saying everybody needs to go,
Right.
take any of the variant of personality tests that exist. I don't think that would hurt, probably.
Yeah.
But I think really in a conversation and an interaction, when I start to feel uncomfortable, and my partner does the same.
Hmm.
Oh, he's just lovely. My partner does the same. I like, if I, sometimes I know why.
Hmm.
Sometimes I don't know why.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah. Hmm.
And I might, and my partner actually, so for him, he often doesn't know why.
Hmm.
And I think, he was raised in a context, wasn't supposed to be in touch with his emotions, be a man, don't be in touch with your emotions.
Right.
And it took him until his 40s to get into therapy. And he's like, I have feelings and can articulate
Oh.
them. Yeah. Two therapists, very cool.
Right.
Um, and so what happens for him is a feeling of discomfort or unsafety arises, and he doesn't quite know why. And then so something we might do is be like, pause.
Hmm.
I'm not feeling great about this. Let's try to unpack it together, or let's set it aside. I'm going to go think about it, and then we'll join back up and we can discuss what's happening for me right now, right? Because
Right.
when I'm when I feel uncomfortable, it's because I feel unsafe,
Hmm.
generally, I
Hmm.
think.
Yep.
And that's really important to honor
Hmm.
and try to work around. And sometimes, I mean, sometimes in a conversation, things can get super duper unsafe and you start, then you're activated and
Right.
then you start being defensive and offensive. You're throwing insults, you're receiving insults, like you're just hurting
Yes.
at that point. And that's a nice point to pause and be like, let's de-escalate. We can maybe do that together, but maybe we can't do that together. So you go over there. I'm going to go over here. Just going to like calm down and then we can talk about it. We can apologize for any hurt that we've,
Hmm.
you know, and then talk about what was happening for us and use that as an opportunity to learn more about each other. I think, sometimes again, I'm hurt. I'm like, you didn't say this or you didn't show up in this way. But then I learned something about his childhood or what he was It's like, okay, cool. And then we can make a plan that navigates between our
Yeah.
differences, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, like it's really important for you to hear from me after this kind of incident. I'll make sure that I text you. I wouldn't have done that naturally, but I'm going to do it now. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I'd like two emojis. He's like, cool, two emojis. I mean, that degree of
Yeah.
specificity is
Yeah.
okay, you
Hmm.
know? Um, those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts?
No, I think those are great thoughts. And what I find is that, and which is why I love your word curiosity and love the fact that when it comes to certainty, your answer is curiosity, really, because I think that's what we have to do. So when I think of my relationships, whether it's with my children, whether it's with my partner, when we come to that crossroad where, oh, we think differently about this, or oh, I'm offended now, officially offended, um, we want to we want to blame, we want to make global statements about the other person, whether we're doing it internal, just like you did with your friend. Oh, you've decided already all about how she feels and what she thinks about you based on her, being late, chronically late. And so we create these statements that we're sure about these people, and then we're then offended about the statements, as opposed to, and this is what I try in a practice, is saying, okay, let me understand. And sometimes I say this to my partner, sometimes I say this to my children, and sometimes I just say this to myself. Sometimes I need to take that pause, like you said, and go, okay, let me get curious about what their experience might have been in that moment. And I love what you said about how you cannot take yourself out of your, experiences or existence, but there is that place of empathy, I think, is that space where we can try. And even in the trying, I think we get somewhere because then we begin to almost put themselves in our place or put ourselves in their place, however you want to look at it. And we can begin to have some level of understanding, even if it's just accepting that we can't fully understand, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. And something that's really powerful for me is like the longer term stories I tell about who this person is, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I have old stories of he doesn't care, he's
Hmm.
inattentive, whatever, whatever. And when I have moments of hurt, I go back to the old stories.
Right. Yeah.
And and then if we're not in contact or we're not, doing that, it's like I have all of this narrative telling I can do. We can all tell the stories of ourselves and our relationships. Like the
Hmm.
power of interpretation lies within us. And
Yes.
I think it's very difficult. The way that we tell stories ebbs and flows based on like whether it's cloudy outside,
Yes.
or if I had breakfast, or if I had a
Yeah.
fight with my mom or my
Hmm.
boss or whatever. Like there's all these different influences. And if I'm feeling negative, I'm gonna lean into negative stories.
Hmm.
And I do a lot of checking myself. I do a lot of checking myself because I have this instinctive. I know I have had some friends who had like a really powerful intuition,
Hmm.
and often in life that has served them so well. But then they have an experience with their partner and they have a instinctive reaction, and it's
Yeah.
like, this is the way this story goes. And I'm making this a part of the big story of us. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Hmm.
Whoa, whoa,
Hmm.
whoa. And something that I actually like to do is I keep a long list of data, like concrete things that have happened in my relationship that talk down the narratives that I'm inclined to tell, right? Like
Hmm.
I have stories that I learned in my childhood, like
Hmm.
love is going to be unavailable, right? Like father, whatever, male figure is always going to be unavailable. I'm never going to, whatever, never going to this. People are always going to abandon me.
Hmm.
These are the stories I run to. And I have a notes app. Like I have a huge document in my notes app where I list all of the examples of how my partner has not abandoned me when I could have been abandoned.
So good.
And so when I start telling those stories of, oh, I'm going to be abandoned, I invite myself to go to get curious about whether that's actually true, or
Yes.
if it's cloudy outside, or,
Hmm.
I ate too much tofu because, and then my estrogen, whatever, like I'm like, get curious about how true this is,
Hmm.
and look at the data that you have,
Hmm.
um, and try. to tell an honest story. Of course, like sometimes we're convincing ourselves that things are sunnier than they actually are, right? So there's
Yeah.
all different kinds of ways that we, you know, mold the
Distort.
narratives.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I just for me, it's just really important to stay curious about like with myself, how true is this? Is this the narrative I want to be telling right now?
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I read somewhere in your work about kind of holding truth lightly. And my work, both as just a human in my relationships, right, but also as a therapist and as a writer, especially for us writers, because we write things and we put them down on paper and then we publish them and they are like sealed in ink somewhere, right? And I know that can be really scary because often by the time our writing gets published a year or, two later, we may already think differently than that book that we wrote. Um, I work with a lot of writers, and this isn't a writing podcast, but we get so attached to this certainty of I must think this way, and if I think this way now, I must continue to think this way, and I must think this way about my spouse or my partner, and if I do, I must continue, almost to the point where it's like I've always done it, so I have to continue. And I'm trying to think of what my point is here. It's about holding things lightly, right? Which means that we can have truths. And I think it's important for us to really stand on a truth that we have in this moment because it matters, especially if it's something we're fighting for, something that we think is really valuable in the world. And yet also recognize that there could come a time where this thing that I believe so strongly and am fighting for, that someone or some information is given to me, and I could change my thought about that. But for right now, this is how I feel, and it's okay to stand strongly in that. And then we have to be able to hold that for the other person too. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
Contrast. So I like to think of all of my beliefs. They're my beliefs and they're hypotheses.
Mm,
And I always want to revise them. And I think of it not as abandoning them, but what I invite people to do is not to try to be correct per se, but try to broaden and deepen understanding.
mm,
And so if I have a belief, I want more understanding around it. I
mm,
want to learn more about what's related over here on the edges. If I can go deep
mhm,
with that, I want to learn more. And so for me, learning more around a belief honors it.
mhm,
And then if I end up moving away from it with time, that's awesome because the highest thing I want to honor is truth. And I sort of see all my beliefs as the metaphor I use is a lily pad. So
mm,
I'm a frog on a lily pad and I like it. I can stand on it, but I'm looking around for another lily pad, and I'll hop to the next one.
mhm.
And so I'm able to stand, but it's light. I haven't built a castle. I'm not shooting arrows from those little slit windows way up on the castle.
Right.
Like,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
like, because that's a lot of what we do when we create a certainty. We
Mhm.
erect these walls and we're like, this is it.
Walls, moats, all kinds of things. Yes.
Exactly. And there's the knight, going back and forth on the
Yeah.
drawbridge. But I prefer to think of it, I'm in a rest, I'm on a belief,
Yeah.
but how can I honor truth? I can stand on this belief, but also stay open to how I can learn more.
Hmm.
And to me, changing that is super cool. It kind of blows my mind. Speaking of writers, in philosophy, we
Yes.
look at a we look at a philosopher in the past, and they've written, say, 20 books,
Hmm.
Kierkegaard or whatever, 30 books, millions and millions of words, and
Yeah.
everybody talks about this writer like this is what they thought the whole time. I'm like,
No.
do
Yeah.
people not change their ideas over 50 years?
I hope
Like,
they have. Yeah.
something that's really when I was yeah, when I was I ran the book that I'm about to publish through a couple of AI services to get
Hmm.
their thoughts. And one of them was like, wait, so you're saying that all beliefs should be held really lightly and like hypotheses. And you're publishing this book asserting that it's true. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, I don't think I'm not exempt from this.
Yes.
This book is a hypothesis. And
I
like
love
I'm
that.
just yeah, and I think it's great. Like we have to believe things.
Yes.
And so what I do is just I offer the best I have in this moment.
Hmm.
This book is the best I have in this moment. I don't think it's perfectly true. It's on the way. That's the thing I invite people to be with truth. On the
On the
way. I'm
way.
on the way.
That is
It
so
makes sense
good.
to me. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it
That,
doesn't make sense to other people, but that's fine.
right. It is fine. And it does make sense to me too. And I just invite our listeners, because I know in many ways, what we're talking about is kind of philosophical, but it applies directly to your relationship because
Yeah.
if you can keep that stance of curiosity, right, in your relationship, then you guys will be able to grow together. I often say that, one of the biggest issues we have in relationships is we expect people to be who they aren't. And that's because we are applying our sense of truth and certainty onto them, and we want them to conform to us and not be who they are. And so if we can work more on becoming curious about who they are, then that truly changes everything. So go ahead, Stephanie.
Speaking of people being who they are,
Yes.
and applying this to real life, I like to think about the difference between like who somebody is and how we are, right? And
Hmm.
so like if you and your partner stay curious, you said you can grow together.
Hmm.
Like that's a journey that never ends. And so
Right.
whoever somebody is today,
Hmm.
right? If you together decide that you're going to create a relationship that's based on curiosity
Hmm.
and openness, then there's this great adventure, right? Where
Hmm.
you're always learning and exploring, um, and you don't know where you're going to end up. But I think that that's really cool, and it adds a dynamism, an open-hearted dynamism where
Hmm.
things, generally speaking, I think can always kind of be getting better or more intimate or like whatever. Generally speaking, we
Yeah,
all go through tough times, you know.
we do.
But I like that, because we're all on the way, you
Right.
know. And we
Yeah,
do that together. Who knows? Okay, let's
that's
go.
beautiful. I love that. So, for someone who buys your book, The Certainty Cure, what can they expect to get out of that?
The salvation of democracy and relationships and their
Mm.
physical and spiritual health. Okay, so
So let's put that in a little bit more of layman's terms.
concrete terms. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I am, if you could give me any kind of title, it would be philosopher, right? I have studied like the books of truth. But I've always been deeply concerned with health and all these different domains of life that I've been working in.
Hmm.
I just realized over and over and over again, the answer is release certainty, cultivate curiosity.
Mm.
And so that's kind of the umbrella of what I offer to people. This book focuses mostly on personal relationships, the benefit of curiosity for
Hmm.
personal relationships. And I started with the salvation of democracy because the subtitle is Heal Polarization and Grow in an Age of Addiction to Being Right.
I love
And
that.
I decided to publish this book with this polarization angle because I mean, I think our society could
Oh,
use a
yes.
little bit
Yeah.
of this perspective, and we're all aware that there's a lot of political tension in our
Hmm.
world.
Hmm.
But like, what do we do about it? I
Yeah.
haven't seen a lot of resources that invite people to take a look inside themselves and think, How are my emotional needs for certainty
Yes.
obstructing my relationships?" And so the book opens with an anecdote about me and my father, because I was raised in a very Republican household.
Mhm.
Dad and I would ride around in the car listening to Rush Limbaugh radio and being like,
Yeah.
get them feminists.
Yeah.
Like, um, and then I went off to college and I came back and I was picking fights with him. The family was going to fall apart. And then I was like, oh, the problem's not dad. The problem is me.
Mm.
Because I went away and came back and decided I needed to change him and
Yeah.
stopped respecting him and listening to him.
Yeah.
And so I decided to relax, to stop trying to change him, relax my need to dominate and force my family to be what I thought it should be.
Hmm.
Just like was with people, offered my perspective kindly, listened, asked
Hmm.
good questions, and wouldn't you know it, but we started having great conversations. I began to learn from my dad again. I realized he had valuable perspective.
Wow.
And I think, I mean, this happens in romantic relationships too, in friendships. The book is just a lot about like what is the role that your beliefs have? Like, how are your beliefs and your attachment to your beliefs getting in your way of feeling connected with other people? And I suspect that a large proportion of people are walking around the world feeling unsafe all the time because, oh
Yes.
my goodness, what if somebody disagrees with me in this space?
Yeah. And what does that mean about our relationship and me and us? Yes. Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, you go out in the world and you see a signal that somebody might like quote unquote be on the other side. They're wearing a mask or they're not. They're wearing this color or they're not. They're wearing a rainbow or they're like all these different
Yes.
things. And we leap to conclusions and we have this almost warlike mentality in a lot of
Hmm.
our communities, church groups, schools, work, like
Hmm.
everything is just really charged. And what I'm just trying to invite people into is acknowledgement that other people are doing and thinking their best.
Yeah.
And this thing that you've been talking about getting curious, you're stuck in your own perspective, getting curious about the other person. There's a reason. A lot of people think their views aren't humane,
Right. Right. Yeah.
but I invite softening around that a little bit because to them they are. You
Yeah.
know, most people aren't trying to be inhumane,
Hmm.
I don't think. So there's a lot of like broad social strokes there. But when my one of my dear friends read the book, she was like, "This is so impactful for my marriage."
Yes.
Because I'm softening around this, I'm learning to accept that I don't have all the answers. And a lot of what I do is provide people with reasons to think that's a cool thing.
Hmm.
Like it's
Hmm.
awesome. I'm so excited that I don't have all the answers. What a
I love
relief.
that. Yes. Yes. What a relief. Now I don't have to spend so much energy holding on to this because it's
Yeah.
possible that it's not even true.
Yeah.
Stephanie, wow, thank you so much for this conversation and just sharing your wisdom and your perspective with us. How can people find your books? How can they find you?
So you can just search The Certainty Cure if you'd like.
Mhm.
On all the social media, it's just my name, Stephanie Ruper. It's easy to find because it's Stephanie like Stefani, like Gwen
Yeah.
Stefani. You can find me in your show notes, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll add it to the show notes.
Yeah, the place where I'm most active, I'm on Instagram, but I really am enjoying Substack these days.
Oh, I love Substack. Yeah.
Substack is just, people like there's ideas. Like
Yeah. Yeah. People are
the
having
focus
meaningful conversations.
it seems to
Yeah.
be more
Yeah.
than anywhere where
Mm.
that's happening. So I've got a Substack. It's called Truth on the Way.
Okay. Great.
But yeah, come say hi.
I will come say hi. I think I'm already following you, but I
You
will
are following me
definitely.
on
Yeah.
Instagram.
Oh yeah, on Instagram. I know I found your Substack as well. So
Oh,
thank
cool.
you. Thank you so much for coming on today. And we wish you the best with the Certainty Cure.
Thank you. Thank you so much too.